This week's guest is Johnnie Stapleton, an early career filmmaker, actor, writer, and a heck of a good dancer. Johnnie is the most recent winner of the Louisiana Film Prize, a short film festival with a $50,000 grand prize. This is the second time he has won the festival in the past several years. We discuss his origins from childhood with his mother's VHS camcorder to his first foray into film directing. His most recent feature, The Best of Seven, is available on iTunes, and a link can be found in the show notes. Johnnie and I will also wrestle specifically with the artist's plight of self-acceptance and why creatives have such a difficult time reaching over their heads and patting themselves on the back. So, without further ado, welcome to this week's episode of Creatively. So today, folks, we have Mr. Johnnie Stapleton.
Hello.
Hello, Johnnie. Johnnie is a writer, a director, a dancer, filmmaker extraordinaire.
Oh, well, thank you. Wow.
And Johnnie and I have known each other for probably, 5 or 6 years now?
Yeah,
we
think
first
that's right.
met at the El Dorado Film Festival.
Year one.
And
What a glorious first year it
what
was.
a glorious first
I
year.
was so impressed by the quality of films. I mean, for a first year festival.
That festival's done really well every year. Like I've always been amazed at the quality of the work.
It's crazy.
And this is the first year that I'm not going to be directly involved with it. So Alexander Jeffrey is taking back over the helm, and
It's in strong, capable hands.
some strong but soft, capable hands.
Quite soft and kind of small.
Yeah.
Also.
He's. We're not going to go there.
No, actually,
No.
I think his hands are probably quite larger than mine. So, I'll need to check those next time I see him.
He has Canadian size hands. So it's the metric system. So that's
good.
why
They're
you're
nice.
probably confused.
Ah, gotcha. You're right. That's what it is.
But what film did you bring that first year?
That first year it was The Beacon, which
That's right.
was written by one of my great friends, Paul Peterson, and it was sort of a passion project of ours. And he wrote it, we produced it together, and he actually starred in it.
And was that, I saw something online that Paul put up that was like an anniversary for The Beacon, like 5 or 6 years ago it was made, like to the day, like a day or two ago.
Really?
Yeah. Because it was he and the lady that was in it, played the female lead.
Yeah.
She's also in his newer short Esmeralda.
Yes, she is.
And there was something
for those two.
it's a reunion for them. But I think it was some sort of anniversary.
I feel like a turd right now because I can't totally recall if it was. In my mind, I think of it as a summer film, but I know we finished it in the fall, and then it was a kind of a long post process. So it's possible. Maybe that's.
Sounds like there's lots of opportunities for anniversaries then. If there was several.
Yeah. No, I know that's tough. I wish I could remember that. I'll need to check in with Paul and find out because I missed it. I didn't get him a gift. But also, I don't believe he got me a gift. I don't know if either of us.
At least
should
the
feel
feeling's
guilty.
mutual.
Yeah, I think we're fine. It's just one of those.
Yeah.
What is year 5 anniversary? Is that wood? What is?
I feel like it is wood.
Yeah.
But I'm going to resist the urge of grabbing my phone and just go with the fact that it's wood.
I'm going to resist the urge to make any kind of joke right there that would be inappropriate.
Of what kind of wood you might be interested in giving Paul?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we all know it's hanging there, and we'll let it go.
Yeah.
So Johnnie,
Make your own joke.
You've been doing filmmaking. We and I had a great conversation last night that might or might not have involved a couple of drinks. But we talked a little bit about just kind of like your desire to be a filmmaker in some form or fashion, a storyteller, if you will, from a very young age.
Absolutely.
So what was there like a film that you watched, or what was the kind of inspirational moment where you went, oh man, I want to do that?
As I look back, I'm trying to remember what film I would have saw that. I mean, a huge inspiration for me was Jurassic Park, just because I don't think I had ever felt that kind of experience at the movie theater. And I just remember being awestruck and
Did you do
blown away.
I did. So did you do the like late night, midnight showing that they did? That was one of the
No,
first
I mean,
movies.
I would have been, I think I was 9 at the time.
Okay.
So I was probably, I'm pretty sure it was a matinee with my mom. But I just remember, yeah, I wish I could have seen the midnight.
I did a midnight showing.
Oh, that'd
I had
be...
the black T-shirt with the red letter logo.
You already knew it was going to be...
Oh, yeah.
I think when I saw it, I didn't necessarily realize... You know, I at that age, you're not aware of the hype behind a film. And especially now, I mean, now there's... I mean, even then there was a lot of hype for things. But, yeah, that one was big. And but when I think about, like, the desire to make films...
Because that can't be the one that made you want to make
films. No. I mean, it
Spielberg made
earlier.
it look impossible.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was like, oh, I want to make my version of that. But I know there was one... I just remember the first thing I ever did when my mom kind of broke out their old camcorder that hadn't really been used. I was 5 at the time, and she put the camera on me, and it was basically just giving a tour of the house, kind of an early rendition of MTV Cribs, where I was taking her around and like giving the tour of the house.
Did you guys have several dozen bottles of Cristal in there?
Yeah, and I had a poster on the wall of Scarface, you know, all of the go-tos. But I remember doing that, and then I think like doing lots of goofy things with the camera where we pretty much just begged my brothers, and I have 2 older twin brothers. I think begging my mom to film us like wrestle each other and be stupid. And then I think my first actual film was a film called Eat at Earl's. I was 7 at the time, and it was we did it in our basement because we had like one of those booths in a basement that you would see at a restaurant. So it took place at a restaurant, and the premise of the film was we had the neighbor kids involved. The guests would come into the restaurant, and we would ask them what they want to eat, and as they're ordering, the servers would start biting into their necks, sort of like a vampire.
So were you doing?
So
I was going to say, was it a zombie thing or was it a vampire?
I would say it's probably more of a vampire. We never really
vampire.
like got into the nitty gritty details of it, but it was a horror film. It was real short. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 minutes. I don't know that exists anywhere, unfortunately.
I was going to say that would be a gem.
Yeah, it was.
That'd be a gem.
It's pretty good.
Was there FX involved? Did you kind of get into
it?
it?
No blood in that one. That kind of stuff came later, but at that point in time, it was just.
And how were the craft services?
Probably roughly around how they are now, which is practically non-existent. You know, some gummy snacks. Maybe like here's a glass. You can go fill up a cup of water at the sink. You know, that kind of. That
Real
sort
practical.
of style. Yeah, we've never been known for our craft services, unfortunately.
Well, I can remember at least on one set having a tremendous amount of bottles of water.
Yeah,
available.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad we did it because I'm sure you were dancing up a storm inside a very hot bar.
It's the only way I know how to dance.
You did a lovely job.
Well, thank you. So you did you got interested in it when you were very small, and how did that kind of progress through like high school and beyond?
Well, basically, going through the years, it was a lot of just recreating things that I saw. So, you know, there would be Twister and we would do Tornado. There would be, you know, Dante's Peak and Volcano. And I think our movie was just called Lava, which was something that we wouldn't even see.
That's actually a really good title.
Lava? Yeah, it's not bad.
It reminds me of those, because those are, like you're talking about all the disaster movies,
exactly.
But it reminds me of one of those old 70s titles.
Yes.
You know, of old disaster movie titles.
I could see that, actually. And I feel like that's been a common thing. You see a lot of movies like that anytime there is a big disaster movie or like a big production, then you'll see like the knockoff version. But that's what I was like.
You were doing the knockoff.
I was doing the knockoffs. And then into high school,
you were you were Tromaville.
Yeah. Pretty much. That was me.
Yeah.
And I went through this very interesting boy band phase where I had 4 of my...
Knowing you, I can't even imagine that.
I know it's hard. It's hard. Anyone who knows me would be shocked. But yeah, I had 4 of my best friends in high school, and we would make these videos where we would lip sync to Backstreet Boys and NSYNC songs. And we would, you know, do dances and things like that. And then we would do dances for talent shows and stuff. And we would make these videos. Do
these videos still exist? Because this sounds like prime YouTube material.
Oh, no. One of them actually is on YouTube. If you put in We even had a band name, and I still to this day don't really know where this name came from, but it was the Guys, but Guys was spelled like Guise, like guys, like disguise.
Like disguise.
I think there was a meaning at the time. It escapes me right now, but but there's one I need to, one of my goals, and some of the guys bug me about it sometimes, the other guys in the group.
Because you're the owner of all the videos?
I am. I mean, well, some of them have copies, and then some of them don't, and bug me to get copies, and rightfully so. They deserve it. They put in a lot of free hours, to.
So you promised
I'm sure
copy
I
and
did.
credit.
There's probably a lot of like broken promises.
You promised copy and credit, and all you gave was credit.
Yeah, and there absolutely weren't meals at that time. So yeah, they definitely
So
deserve
was
something.
it original songs? Were you like writing?
No,
them?
absolutely not.
It was covers of other things.
Completely
Lip sync.
I mean, I don't even know if you could call them covers. It was just the songs.
Was it lip sync?
And then lip syncing to them.
Oh, I don't even know if you can put that on YouTube.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not.
mean, I think you can. They might mute it if it gets too many views.
What's the name of it? What's the one?
Oh, so the one that is online is called Incomplete. So if you put in my name, Johnnie Stapleton, Incomplete, maybe the Guys also, I don't know how many things, but that's a long music video in which there's like a 3-minute intro, like pretty unnecessary, I guess, just setting up.
Yeah,
some
but
stuff.
that was also the time of like, at that age, I'm sure I remember music videos. There were people, MTV and those companies that were producing those things. The record companies were throwing millions of dollars into a
huge production
music. I mean, if you look at
those.
music videos today versus music videos in the early to mid '90s,
That was the heyday for them.
Oh my gosh, they were spending so much money on music videos, and so many of those filmmakers of that era that were making music videos are now film directors and television and film that are well known.
Yeah.
A lot of people kind of came up in that arena.
Yeah, I always wanted to be one of those guys. But,
Well, yeah, of course. So you've gone from what was it? Eat at what?
Eat at Earl's.
Eat at Earl's, which title's not quite as strong as Lava. But we've gone from Eat at Earl's to now you're doing music videos. And so when do you kind of take your first step into like, okay, these are kind of fun, I'm playing around with these things, but like, what is it like to really try to do this? Like, when do you make a decision to say, well, I'm having fun with these, I have an interest in this, but you try to turn this from a hobby into a career?
Well, I would say like the first like step towards that would have been right after I graduated high school, before first year of college. I took my graduation money that you get, when people come to the party, and put that, it's probably between $500 and $1,000, basically into my first, I guess, feature film. It was called Unusual Heroes, and made that with just friends.
So this is when you're 18 years old?
18 years old, yeah. Now this one, it does exist somewhere. This is one that I would be able to find, and I think that one was essentially a comedy about like these 3 friends who, the main character, which I played at the time, kind of nerdy, sort of losery type, underdog hero guys.
And you wrote it as well?
I wrote it as well, yeah. And basically there is the lead character's girlfriend, or the girl he wishes was his girlfriend, his like best friend. She gets kidnapped by these 3 super intense, but also very comedic, goofy, almost Home Alone-esque type kidnappers. And then they hold her for ransom because she's the mayor's daughter, and then they have to go rescue her. But the thing that I think was really clever about the whole thing is the movie, even though the whole thing is essentially a comedy, chunks of the film, each like, it's basically like an hour and a half long movie. It was a full length.
Yeah.
Each like 15-minute chunk, we tried to kind of put into a different genre. So there's like a part of the movie where he's getting to know the girl, or sort of kind of trying to woo her, that's very rom-com-esque. And then the kidnapping is very like a parody of horror movies-esque. And then there's of course a musical number.
Of course.
'Cause,
I don't think you know how to do movies
I
without
don't
musical
know that
number.
I could not make a movie with a musical number in it. And then there's ultimately like a way overlong action sequence at the end that just goes through almost every trope you could think of. That probably is like 30 minutes of the movie on its own, of just action scene where there's the 3 bad guys and there's the 3 good guys, and they each take on their own prospective bad guy fighting in various points in the city, and then sometimes all of them come together and are all fighting together, and other times and using
I
a lot
think
of...
you just described the plot of the first Avengers movie.
They robbed me. They took it. They saw this film. Yeah.
We need to get Kevin Feige on the phone because I think that maybe we might have an issue here.
I think so. You know, I'm gonna let it go because I really want to see the next one.
We don't want to ruin it.
I don't want a big like legal battle that I don't want to like, you know, rain on their parade right now. They're doing pretty good.
Yeah, let's wait to see how much money the next one rakes in, and then make your claim.
Come out like, hey guys, Avengers, Unusual Heroes. I mean, like pretty much the same kind of title. You know, we were avenging in that movie in a way. But yeah, and then going from there through college, focused mostly on acting and writing plays and things, and then I think that's where even more of the passion came in for writing and directing.
Like now, where you are now, like you're very much into a director's mindset. Like that's when we talked last night. You said that's very much your focus at this point. So
absolutely.
Was acting the first kind of entree into experiencing it on a more professional level and kind of like diving into it from an educational perspective?
You know, it's interesting because I've always like acting has definitely been my for a good chunk of my life, basically from high school through college, and then through probably a good maybe 5 years after college, where I was living out in Los Angeles trying to be an actor.
When,
so that was
when was this? When were you?
So this would be from basically 2009 to 2014. Those years, that was after I graduated college. Living out here, doing a lot of ultra low budget short films, a couple of features, and just anything that I could do.
So that was an interesting time. I think like that was right after I had left Los Angeles, and it was an interesting time.
So then I came out.
Yeah, that's right. I had to give a space up, so I let you have it.
You did. It was very kind of you.
Yeah, well, you know, somebody had to get the work. But I think that
wasn't me.
I think it was an interesting time, and I think we talked a little about this last night as well. It was just after the kind of advent of reality television shows, and I saw that wave hit when I was here. Because like the first year I was here, I remember going out on a tremendous amount of auditions. Then all of a sudden, the phone stopped ringing, and the only thing I was ever getting calls for were some sort of rip off of The Bachelor, basically. Oh, and so, was that kind of the landscape during that time, or had that kind of cleaned up?
It probably wasn't as intense as it was during your time, but it was still very prevalent. And there was a lot of there was like even worse than the reality TV. There was the wannabe reality TV, the people who were doing the specs. Like you said, the ripoff of The Bachelor, that's like such a perfect example. So there was a lot of things that were kind of tempting to do because someone was actually interested in you and wanted to cast you. Yeah. But then the details of it being like, well, this is pretty much reality TV. Is there any point in doing this?
I think one of the things that, people have a tendency to they have this kind of romanticized idea, I think, in their heads as to what it's like to live in Los Angeles and be a working actor or attempt to be a working actor. And I know there were short stints of my time when I was out here in LA where I was making enough money to pay my rent and my bills and everything, just relying on nothing but my auditioning skills, which was great when it could happen. But it was very, very rare. Actually. Yeah. Well, it's very rare. You've got to find other ways to hustle, and I think that
I don't think I've ever been able to do that.
Oh, you hustle. But that's what I was going to ask is like what my time, because I know you went away and you came back. So like what my time out here taught me was that ability to. I got to a point where I figured out how to say yes to many things that I had no idea how to do it. But I knew that if I had a 24-hour gap in time, I could probably figure it out, unless it was just physically out of my ability. And then I probably needed about 2 weeks, and I'd figure it out. Like I could find a way to make things happen, and you just end up saying yes to a lot of things because you're just trying to kind of survive. And so that hustle of kind of always being out there and selling yourself is what I learned. Did you pick up any kind of like lessons in that 5-year chunk of time that you were here where?
Well, I mean, it was actually, I should clarify, I've been out here for 10 years. I actually never did leave. That the reason I broke it up into the first 5 is 'cause the first 5 I was working harder, more focused on trying to just act, like have that be the thing. That was like the goal, the dream. Directing wasn't even really on my mind. I like to write, so the idea of I wrote a lot of screenplays with Paul Peterson, one of my best friends, and I know he had a lot of ideas of or dreams of writing a screenplay that would get made into a film that would be amazing if we could even be in this thing. But there was that dream, and then there was the dream of acting.
He was your Matt Damon, you were his Ben Affleck.
It's funny you say that, because that's very true. We used to, this is embarrassing, I don't even know why I'm sharing it, but we used to, like, in emails and stuff.
I can promise he's going to be happy you're sharing it.
We used to call each other that in jest. But, in emails and stuff, back and forth, sending each other drafts of things, calling each other Ben and Matt. And at the time, I was Ben and he was Matt, which I think Matt had a little bit better career. So I was always like, oh, yeah, you're Matt. And then Ben kind of took off as the sort of director.
Right.
And then his career kind of sort of was like, ooh, it's not so bad being Ben.
And then he did Batman.
Well, yeah, then he did do Batman, but I still feel like there's more good things in store, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, we can't all have reindeer games in our
that's true.
credit list.
Actually, I like that movie.
Did you?
Well, I saw it when I was probably like 13.
Yeah,
so,
I can't remember the
really
premise.
Answer your question at all, but I think I didn't really, in regards to kind of the, I guess maybe fake it till you make it sort of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't experience as much of that in the acting thing. I didn't get many jobs. But also, when you come out, this is just to anyone who's thinking about coming out to LA to be an actor, it requires a lot of due diligence in terms of submitting yourself for roles every day, for sometimes hours a day, or maybe for most days hours. There's an actor that I know, a good friend of mine by the name of Corey Landis, and he works a lot, and he books a lot of awesome gigs, but he has representation, and they're responsible for part of that, but at the same time he gets a lot of things himself just because he is a hustler. He is a man who gets things. So you kind of have to have that mindset when you come out here. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I had moments like that, but that wasn't my norm, unfortunately. But I think I experienced more of the learning as you go in the directing realm of things.
So the reason you broke it up is because your focus switched at about the 5-year point. And so what is it that happened over that 5 years that started to push you in a different direction?
Well, there were a couple things. I would say two big things that made me consider that. The first was just when you do enough ultra low budget things that generally don't turn out too great, and you never know that when you're in it. You might get the script and think, oh, this has potential. Everything you want that you're reading, that you're in, you hope is going to be good. I don't think anyone hopes something is going to be bad. You always kind of hope for the best.
I think one of my favorite quotes of all time, which I do believe is a Ben Affleck quote, directly after they released Geely, was, when you're making a bad movie, you don't know you're making a bad movie.
Absolutely. That's so true. I think that's true on almost any level. I'm sure those fears creep in, as I'm sure it did for him and J-Lo. Anyway, so you would do these films, you put a lot of work into it on the acting side of things, but you'd really have no control over whether it's good or bad. And I remember that would always kind of come back to me of
you don't even have anything to put on your reel. Like
exactly.
you end up with nothing.
Oh man, this is really.
I made $300 and that's not enough to pay my rent. And
absolutely.
I probably just wasted a bunch of time.
Absolutely, or I made $0,
which also
and
happens.
gave up work to do this thing that is essentially just a waste of time. I mean, maybe a fun experience, No.
I did some of those projects as well, where you get the final copy and it's just like, wow, I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, there's a fair share of that. Remind me to tell you a story later. This is like not the thing to say on a podcast. Oh, remind me to tell you a story later about that.
Tune in later, folks. Yes. There's going to be something interesting.
Maybe at the end, if we have time, you can say like, "Hey, what's that thing?" Because it's a pretty fun thing. So just teaser there. So the other thing that happened was one of my best friends, Domenico Grasso, who's a cinematographer / filmmaker. He
and so cool.
So yes. He was the cinematographer when we shot The Beacon, and even before we did that, we shot basically a kind of a prelude in a sense to The Beacon. We shot a few of these other things, and I wasn't even really on as a director, but there wasn't necessarily a director. It was just this small intimate scene with Paul and Rachel. Domenico was shooting it, and I wasn't. I was just there kind of for moral support. But Paul had asked, in between takes, if I could give them any notes or any suggestions. So I gave them a few. I mean, they pretty much already had it together. So it was just a couple little things. But Domenico, I guess, saw something there that he was kind of looking for a director for a script he had written, and he was hoping that maybe I would be up for that. And I told him, hey, I would love to do it, but I don't really know anything about the filmmaking, the technical side of directing. I'd done some directing of actors, of scenes and things in college, but not, I'd done like my own movies, but I never really considered that much of directing. I didn't think of it really as experience. Even though I guess now in hindsight it probably was.
Is it that? Let's sit on that for a second.
Yeah.
Like I find that's one of the interesting things that I've learned, because I'm a little older than you, is that a lot of times as we're kind of moving through life, doing these things that we think are just fun or just like side exercises or hobbies, but we've done them for a good number of years, or we've done them in jest in some instances, but we've done them numerous times, and then once the culmination of those events get added together, you go, oh wow, like I
got a lot out of that.
I learned something there.
Absolutely.
And other people also pay dividends towards it. They go, oh wow, you look at all this stuff you've done, and you're thinking, yeah, but I mean, it's just like me.
There's nothing. Yeah.
I was goofing off with some friends over a weekend, and we made a 5-minute short, and but yeah, it's these
still
moments.
You're telling a story, and,
yes.
and that's the thing. If you look back on some of these videos, and in general as a whole they might not be very good, but you see there's moments of there, and like the moments of potential, and then
and I think that's important to highlight, because I think that's one of the things that we as artists have a tendency to do, is to get down on ourselves and the quality of our work. And,
absolutely.
And if the end product, and it maybe even goes back to the comment you make about giving up time to go do something, like there's a lesson to be learned on that as well as a performer. We will, over time, at the end of it, if the quality doesn't come out as great as we wanted it to, or we submit it to 30 festivals and it gets turned down at all of them, you did actually gain something in the time and the effort you put forth to get it.
Absolutely.
Whether the failure turns out to be the lesson, or the kind of time in the trenches also turns out to be the lesson. Just the experience of having to, making a film is really, really hard. It's extremely difficult. I mean, it is. And I think, someone, I don't remember, I'm sure it was someone extremely famous and very important, said something about, a film is basically 24 perfect pictures a second. And it's, if you think about it, you think about the greatest photographer that takes a single shot. No pressure. Yeah. But that's what it is. I mean, it's 24 perfect pictures in a second. And to be able to string that together and then tell a story with it, it's not an easy feat. And I think that by simply attempting it, you're gaining something in the long run. And it takes time to get there.
Yeah. That's so true. I love the way that you put that, and I think that's absolutely how it is. I think someone else said, and I don't know who this was. It's so tough. I feel like sometimes remembering quotes you remember the quote, but not always who said it. But,
right.
They said you are constantly as an artist. I think this works really good for filmmaking, but I think it works for any sort of thing that you're striving to do. But as a filmmaker, you kind of have this point of where you want to be, and you're striving to get there. And like in the beginning, a lot of the things you do are not going to reach your level of what you consider to be like good. And you're just like that moment where you hopefully one day get to a point where your work kind of reaches the level of what you think is good. Is kind of like the driving force behind a lot of artistic people, of just trying to get to that point. And it's like each thing you do, you put everything you have into it, hoping that you'll reach that point. And then if you can look at it subjectively, like, okay, well, I'm still not there yet. And I think in that, kind of alluding to what you said, there's a lot of it's very easy to get kind of down on yourself, because you put everything you have into these things, and in your mind it's there, and then sometimes the execution of it, you're maybe satisfied with it, but not necessarily to the level that you want to be. And it's just trying to get to that point where you can look back on something that you've just created and say, there, I did it. It's
so. I mean, one of the things you said you feel like that at some point that you will attain your status that you've set for yourself. Is that what you're saying? So that the level of your work.
I mean, I don't feel there personally yet.
because I don't know that I agree with that. Like I think that what happens for artists is that we have a tendency, once we've even reached whatever pinnacle we've set for ourselves, and I think this is actually a good thing, even though it's soul sucking, is that we, when we're learning and we're very new and kind of an ingenue in the business of how things work, like we have this idea of where we want to be, and so we've set it 10 feet higher than where we are, and so we're constantly kind of striving for it. And I think what happens is over time we're actually 40 feet higher than where we started, but we're still looking 10 foot up, trying to get there because we don't think we've ever gotten there.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
No, that might be, I think that's very possible in a lot of scenarios.
I just don't know. I just can't, thinking back, I can't think of any creators that I know that have gone, oh, yeah, okay. Got it. Like this is, and most of them that have, like they don't make good stuff.
Tail. You're never like going to get it.
Yeah.
Even though times where you think you're like getting real close, you're like, well, I still haven't gotten it.
One of my favorite directors of all time is Nicholas Winding Refn. Beautiful filmmaker. He did Drive. Only God Forgives. He did this amazing series called the Pusher, or trilogy called the Pusher Trilogy. It's these 3 films. Crazy stuff. Beautiful filmmaking. Only God Forgives, which he did with what's the guy from La La Land?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
He did Drive with Ryan Gosling, and then Only God Forgives was the next film he did, and it was not received very well. And his wife made a documentary about them making the movie, and I liked the movie, and most people think I'm crazy, but I like weird stuff too. So I thought it was a beautiful film. There's some scenes in it that are just absolutely disgusting and gorgeous at the same time. That process of watching him make the film and just tear himself in two because he can't get the quality of the work that he thinks he needs. And then you go watch the movie and you're like, oh my God, that's like that. Forget whether you like the narrative of the film, but like that moment of cinema that was captured and that he thinks is not the quality that he needs. You're like, dude, you're not seeing, you've gotten at a point, you're so high on my mountain that I'm looking up at you going, gosh, one day maybe I can make something that looks as beautiful as that. And he's looking up the mountain even further, and I think it's just an unending staircase for us.
I mean, you're probably right. But in some ways, I think that's good. In some ways, I think that's kind of what you need to always be sort of, never content to hang on your laurels or to be too satisfied with something that you've made, where you're always, not that you should be unhappy with it. Of course, if it's something that, ideally you're proud of the work that you've done.
Yeah.
But always kind of,
I think you want to know,
reaching that next.
Like I think the goal for me has always been to feel like when I step away from a project or when I finished anything, it's like, okay, I gave that everything I had, and there was no more to give. So it's either it's going to be judged positively or negatively, but honestly, that doesn't matter. What matters is that I gave it all that I had to give in whatever form I was asked to give, and walk away. And I think if you can do that, you can walk away satisfied.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so I kind of hijacked all that.
No,
and I apologize.
no, that's great.
But
I love what you were saying there.
So we
put a little perspective on me.
Yeah, well, you're giving me some as well. So we've hit the end of the 5-year mark.
Yeah.
You've got a friend now that this Domenico's giving you these. He's like kind of giving you this kind of sideways glance.
I mean, I owe a lot to him in that he kind of awoke in me the inner director that was kind of sort of buried deep down that kind of came out, and it wasn't really something. I think I always thought that since I knew so little about like really the technical side of things, the cameras, lenses, and lighting, all that stuff, was not skilled in that area, that I was like, well, that's something I'll leave to someone else. So when he gave me the opportunity, and I didn't even understand, storyboarding, I was like, dude, he's talking about, he's Italian, so of course I learned the accent. Do Staple. He calls me Staple because my last name's Stapleton. Do Staple. Don't even worry, I'll do the storyboards, man. So he's like drawing him up, I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. He's not necessarily the best sketcher, but even in his simple drawing, so much was translated, and you could understand like, okay, this is the shot composition. And of course I didn't even know that term at the time. It was just like, oh, this is what's going to look like. Cool. Right. I like it. And going on and doing that, so I was focused more on just the the actors, and the tempo, pacing, all that kind of stuff. From there, that just sort of continued. We did the first thing together. I really
What was the
liked
first
it.
thing?
The first thing was basically a short that was going to be part of a series called Link Me Up. It was kind of like a take on Quantum Leap, where a guy wakes up.
Great
Phenomenal series.
Scott
Yes.
Bakula, thank you very much.
Oh my God, I love that show.
Yeah.
Where
I've actually gone back just for a second because I have.
You watched? Yeah.
I've gone back.
I'm down to talk about Quantum Leap for the rest of the podcast. So
we should start a new podcast about Quantum Leap.
Each episode is about an episode.
We could actually do commentary tracks for every episode, and people could watch
we could
along.
Probably get Scott in here for that.
Well, I think he might do it. But no, I did go back and rewatch a couple of the episodes. And I just picked some random episodes. I can't remember where I found them. I'm sure they're available somewhere. But I went back and watched some of them, and then I thought, oh gosh, there are a couple of that really I remembered, and I went back and watched the original first pilot episode, which was a great episode. And then I thought maybe I'm gonna go now and watch the very last, because I remembered the very last episode. I went and I cried like a baby. But that's not. I mean, I cry all the time.
I don't know that I saw it. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Because you're getting into it.
No,
with crying like a baby.
I'm a crier though. That's
I
just
would like to hear more about that. We'll have another podcast just talk about the times that you cried in your life. But so I don't know that I've ever seen the final episode of Quantum Leap.
You got to go watch it
because it was always talking the opening narration
and I know it's been years, but I'm not going to spoil it for you.
His next leap will be the leap home. And every time there was my heart broke a little bit.
You got to go watch
line of narration in the opening. For those who don't know what Quantum Leap is, we should maybe
there
just
people
set that. I think if there's people in the younger generation, younger than me, they might not know what it is.
No, that's true because Quantum Leap was an amazing show. Starred Scott Bakula, where he was doing a science experiment sometime in the future, and he opened a time portal that he accidentally stepped through. And what happened is he would end up every episode. There would be he would fall into someone's consciousness, and he would inhabit that body inwardly, but the outward appearance would be whoever the person actually was. It could be a man or a woman, it could be an astronaut, or it could be a waitress. And he would fix whatever problem was going on with their life, and as soon as he solved it, he would leap into quantum leap into hopefully his reality, but he always landed in someone else's.
Always someone else's.
And
body.
He always had Al.
He
with
did.
That
Al
beautiful
was amazing. With the little remote thing that he was trying to.
It always looked like a really fancy Texas Instrument calculator to me.
Yes, I would agree with that. Al's his sidekick.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah, and he would kind of phase in, and it was nothing but he was nothing but light,
a hologram.
Hologram type of thing. And he would help him kind of figure out what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
There's one of the best scenes. I remember. It's probably the one that stuck with me the most was, and I don't remember the storyline, but I didn't know Scott Bakula could sing, but the guy can sing. He plays.
Scott Bakula can do anything.
He can do anything? I think he can.
What a dreamboat.
No, but he sings "Imagine" by John Lennon in one of the episodes,
and he sings it for real.
Yeah, he sings it for real, and he's playing for this little girl, and they're it seems like they're on a front porch somewhere, and she starts crying, and he's like, "Honey, what's wrong?" She's like, "I've never heard that song before." He played it too soon.
Oh, what a great!
It hadn't been written yet.
There's actually a movie coming out with a similar premise to that.
Yeah.
I think it's called Yesterday. It's about this guy basically gets knocked unconscious and then wakes up, and he's a musician, and the Beatles have never existed.
Oh, so he's gonna lean on that.
Yeah, it's by the guy who wrote Love Actually. I think it's maybe the guy who wrote Love Actually, and maybe Danny Boyle's directing it. I think.
Yeah.
And I love Love Actually. It's a big guilty pleasure.
Oh,
not
that's
even.
great.
I'm not even gonna feel guilty for that. I just love it.
No, you should.
But anyways, it's just funny. It made me think of that.
So this is turning into a really good episode of The Family Guy where we just kind of go on tangents.
Yeah. So back to Link Me Up. It was basically the same concept. A little different, but in that there was some correlation, there was some connection with all these different people that each episode was going to be a different person, similar to Quantum Leap. And there's something that he had that could help these people. There's some skill or something that it was a little bit more of I think probably less scientific, maybe more spiritual. But the interesting thing of ours was that whenever he looked in a reflection, what he would see in the reflection would be the actual person, so he could communicate with them. There would be man, what the hell are you doing in my body? What the hell's going on? And then he would, and he would have to try to gauge. He didn't have an Al. His like sidekick was essentially the actual person. Yeah, and
interesting concept.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was like kind of a comedy, but then we also tried to have some touching moments. We did 2 episodes.
Did you guys make an attempt to sell that? I mean, like, how did?
I mean, I think that was the plan. We were going to shoot. We shot 2 episodes. We were going to shoot a few more. But I think at that time we didn't really have any connections to do anything like that, and kind of just sort of moved on to other projects. But it still I think holds a good place in our heart. If nothing else, it was a great learning experience shooting a few episodes of that.
Yeah, again, it's just what are you going to get out of it, right? Right,
yeah.
And you got the experience of kind of popping your cherry as a director and kind of getting all that out of the way, making all the mistakes in a safe space.
Absolutely.
And kind of moving on to other things. So one of the first things I ever saw you do, and I think that I don't know if you had any directing attachment to this, but you definitely had a performance, was Best of Seven.
Oh, I directed the hell out of that thing.
I had a feeling you probably did.
Yeah. And
so, and Best of Seven was a really fun feature, and it started a really grand tradition actually with the El Dorado Film Festival, which
the late night screening.
The late night screenings where filmmakers don't tell anyone.
Shut your mouth.
Where filmmakers will come in and projects they're working on that are incomplete, that are in process, they'll share scenes and sometimes whole pieces. And you shared, if I remember, the whole.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we would call it the rough cut. I mean, we definitely made changes after that, but it was essentially the film that we had just kind of finished, basically finished most of post production on. And basically the concept is about a guy who has dissociative identity disorder. He has 7 personalities, and he, after a nearly fatal overdose, decides to stop taking his meds for 1 week to see if he can handle it. And then all of these ridiculous personalities come back out of the woodwork. They're kind of caricatures, you got kind of the.
It's a comedy.
It's a comedy.
It's
we should say that.
It was what I would refer to.
Raunchy comedy.
That's what I was gonna say. It would be like in the '80s they would call this a late night screwball comedy.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a
play it alongside Porky's.
Yes. That's actually what I liked about it, because I think one of the things that, like, when you're trying to find new work and new films that are out there, that genre of film has kind of disappeared from what's being made today, because the small budget comedy films,
it was like a National Lampoon sort of.
Yeah.
They were the kind of the kings of that at one time.
Right. Yeah. And so anyway, it was a great show. But what happened with that?
So basically, we made that movie for like $0. I mean, we shot it over the course of a year. It was me and Domenico. We had friends involved as well. Mike Nicholas, who's another main member of our team, and Paul, who I mentioned earlier. My roommate Eric, my friend Adam. I mean, a lot of people.
And you shot it here in LA.
We shot it here in LA. Most of it was in my apartment, which drove my roommates absolutely crazy, and rightfully so. We would tear that place apart.
So you used the basic resources that you had, whatever you could find.
Like a lot, yeah. No permits, no anything. I mean, there were multiple days on set where it would just be me and the cameraman Domenico. It would be the 2 of us. We never had a sound. I mean, sometimes we would have a person holding a boom mic. We didn't really understand all of the necessities of sound at that point. We knew they were important. We just didn't think that we had the money or the resources to do what needed to be done. We later learned, like, okay, this actually would have been pretty easy. We could have just thrown $100 into this and gotten at least.
When the sound quality is not terrible though.
It's you'll get used to it as you're watching it. Your ears they adjust. They're like, okay, this isn't great, but this is what we got.
Yeah.
But there would be days where we would literally put like a little mic, a boom mic. We would rest it on a shelf, and then I would try to just talk in that direction. And that's how it would be done. And, since a lot of it we use split screen and some green screen, but mostly split, or I would have friends come in, and they would be, because the way that you would see all these different
over
personalities.
The shoulders of, yeah.
Exactly. You would see the personalities all on screen, and they interact, they argue, they fight. They sometimes make love. Spoiler.
Yeah, wow, you really laid it on the line.
I wanted to put it out there just for anyone who knows, so they know, like, kind of like, oh wow. So yeah, there was a time where
if anyone's ever interested in watching Johnnie make love to himself,
oh yeah,
this is your shot.
And the truth be told, it wasn't technically myself. It was like, there's a reason that me and Mike Nicholas are so close now. You know,
Yeah.
like you don't become a best man in some guy's wedding just by hanging out. You know, there's more to that.
Well, what's funny is
And,
I was watching that scene. For anybody who's seen it, anybody ever watches it, is I was watching that scene. It was the first time.
The lovemaking scene, is that what we're talking about? Just want to make that clear. We're
yeah.
talking about the lovemaking scene.
Yeah, it occurred. It was the first time it occurred to me, because that's pretty late into the film.
Yeah,
it's
we
the first,
build to that.
Yeah,
You see a lot
don't
of
start
stuff
there.
happen. There's a lot of murder and mayhem and chaos before that.
Yeah.
We don't just jump with me getting it off.
What occurred to me, it was the first time it occurred to me, is that because it was into the film a ways, was this is actually just one person.
Yes.
So what does this look like? Like, if you just you forget that this is not two people. This is one person by themselves in a room somewhere.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. Why am I thinking about that? I need to go back to this movie.
Well, then no. It's and what we would do in the film is randomly we would cut to just the one guy, and you would see what it's like. We would try to do it at really fun moments where trying to find the moments where in your head you think exactly what you thought there, like what the heck is this, and then we smash cut to what's actually happening, and it's completely absurd. And then that one, I think that's right around the time where the parents come into the room.
Yes.
They're already worried, but then they open up the door and they see him basically vigorously masturbating in the corner of the room doing these two different voices, and it's just like, oh wow, that's so. I mean, this is giving people a clear idea of what they're getting into.
It's a raunchy screwball comedy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we did it. We didn't think really. We started making that movie as a short film. We thought it was going to be a short, but we didn't finish writing it. So we're like, oh, it'll be a 15-minute short. No, that's how Dom pitched it to me. It's like, dude, Staple, we shoot this in 3 days, man. No problem. It's like, oh, all right. And I loved it because I love, getting to be on camera. At that point in time was like, I loved it. And then I used to, when I was a kid, I didn't really mention this before, but I would make films where I would play all the different roles. So I would set up the camera, and I couldn't do split screen, but I would have different characters in different parts of the room talking to each other.
So what happened to the film?
So basically, once we finished it, almost for shits and giggles, we went to the American film market. First off, I should say it played at the El Dorado Film Festival.
It did.
And
the following year.
Yeah, following year.
Year two.
Best of Fest, which was super unexpected and very exciting. So kind of with that and with a few other festival runs, we went to the American Film Market here in Los Angeles in Santa Monica, and basically had a trailer cut for it at that time, and just went to different distributors or anybody who would possibly be able to get the film out there, and then found a company called Leo Mark Productions, and they really liked it. They kind of saw it for the same things that you saw it for, and I appreciated it for that, and took it on, and then basically got it out there, and you can find it now on iTunes, Amazon, some Walmart locations in stock or online.
And was that the first thing you sold?
First thing, yeah.
How was that process? Tell me, how did that process go? Was it let me ask, and we can keep it, you can get as detailed or you can keep it as vague as you want to, but just kind of in general, was it a pleasant process, or was it an unpleasant process?
No, I would say it was pleasant. I mean, the thing, when you're working on kind of a smaller level like that, you kind of have to take it upon yourself to do a lot of the marketing and getting the word out. I mean, it's going to rest more on you and kind of your connections and the people that you know to really get your stuff out there. So I mean, there was a lot of that. They definitely did take the load off certain areas. They took care of poster stuff, and they did a lot of the marketing in regards to reaching out to websites and different publications to review the film. Some positively, some negatively. That's kind of where I learned to, I think, have a little bit thicker skin, because when the first you get the first really tough bad review
Tear you open.
that tears you open, and that one was tough for me in that I couldn't stray away and say let's put it on the actors or let's put it on the writer or the director. I was all of it, so I had to take responsibility for any pretty much all those different areas of the film, and it went down a lot smoother than I thought.
Yeah.
Because you make a film like that, it's not for everyone. But back to that experience, I would say for us it was nice. It was fine. I mean, I would have loved for the film to maybe get a little bit more notoriety or get out there a little bit more.
But you sold something, right?
We sold something.
I think that's important to say, just because you spent little to no money on this feature. It took you over a year to produce it. You made it with your friends in your apartment.
I had a lot of fun.
Had a lot of fun.
Work, but it was a good time.
You went to the American film market and you sold it.
Yeah.
And I mean, is that a path or an exercise that you think someone that's interested in filmmaking should take? I mean, would you recommend them trying to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can shoot something that, so what is very popular at the American film market are like genre-heavy things in that. I mean, comedy is actually not one of the stronger genres.
I would assume horror would probably be.
Horror is super strong. Horror or like, you know, dark comedy kind of has a good market there, or raunchy comedy. I think that's part of the reason why they liked it. If you got a little nudity in there, which I mean, we did have my booty in the film a couple times, so we had.
I unfortunately have to remember
check that off the list. But yeah, I mean, I think if you are doing more of an indie darling, I don't know. I mean, I think you could still have luck there and find someone who's interested. But I think if you got a really fun horror film, you know, that can be like real gritty and real violent or whatever, it doesn't need to be. But I think you would probably have better luck with something like that there than, you know, more straight down the middle or kind of traditional comedy or love story.
Well, I know you're working on some new things now, and it's primarily writing and directing based. And I know you had some big news today, and you can't share, but I think that what I'd like to ask you a little bit now is that that was a couple of years ago that happened, right? So you've gone through several projects now. You've done several shorts, two of them which you entered and won the Louisiana Film Prize in Shreveport, Louisiana, which I'm sure was a huge kind of like shot in the arm as a creator, not just financially, but just as a maybe I'm doing something right.
It's a good. It's great validation, to put it mildly.
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed is that you seem to have begun to put together, at least from the outside, it seems like you've begun to put together some structure to how you and the rest of your team work. So could you give us a little bit of a peek behind the door there on what that looks like?
Well, I mean, I think it's important for, you know, anyone who's coming up and wanting to direct and make things. A team, if you can put together a team of people that you trust and that you enjoy working with, that is invaluable. I don't think, well, I know I wouldn't have gotten to where I am now without the team. It's all about that. So I'm trying to remember exactly what your question was.
So what is, like, process-wise, when you guys are working on shows, like how does it, what's the day one look like for when you guys, it's time to, we're going to work on a new project. Is it someone come in with an idea, or is it a team meeting? Like, what's the process look like?
Yeah, so it starts with throwing around ideas, and that is generally not even like sitting around a table. That's just, you know, because the guys that I'm working with very closely, Mike Nicholas and Domenico Grasso, are two of my best friends. We are just, you know, it's kind of throwing around ideas when we're hanging out, having fun, and just chit-chatting about it. That's kind of where it starts. And then once we kind of find an idea that we all three, it resonates with us and we get excited about it. Hopefully, I mean, sometimes it doesn't always work that everybody's excited about it, like depending on like timelines. With Louisiana Film Prize, there's timelines there, but generally, ideally, you find something that everyone's excited about, and then for us, it comes then to the script writing phase, which is a little bit of a process.
Who's the primary screenwriter, or do you guys share?
I mean, we share it. I would say I take more of the load there, but it'll be a matter of, you know, sometimes they will write things, and then I'll take it and kind of maybe tweak and put my spin on it.
What do you write on?
Or vice versa, where I will. I use a little iPad that I've been using for the last 4 or 5 years. Same one. I bought a new one, and I still haven't been able to make the switch to the new one because the old one just, I think, has these like sentimental value. I can see all the other scripts on there that I can just look at any time, and I'm sure all that stuff could be transferred. But there's something about that. It's like, oh man, this is like everything.
What program on the iPad do you use?
Celtics.
Celtics?
Yeah, it's CELTX.
Okay.
Is how it is, but it's great. I mean, it kind of does all the work for you. Back in the day when I wrote with Paul, all that stuff we would do in a normal Word document. We would just be pressing the tab bar a bunch of times, and just guesstimating. Like, this looks like where a name should be.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, so writing on that. Sending drafts out to Mike and Dom, getting notes from them, making adjustments, sometimes having them send in scenes. And, you know, for the film prize, the films have to be less than 15 minutes. So
That's
it's
right.
always,
Gotta get
the
tight.
biggest thing there is like the cuts, trying to figure out what we can lose. And for us, the biggest thing has always been, where we've always spent the most time is always been the end and trying to figure out how do we end it. And that's, I would say we spend about 30% of our time on the first 2/3, and then we spend the other 70% on like that last and just trying to figure out what it is, how to.
So how do you know
wrap
when
up.
you've locked that script? Like, this script's ready to go.
There's a lot of rewrites going on. I would say it only locks because it has to, because we're like, okay, we are shooting this thing tomorrow, so this should probably be the final draft. It's usually those are the instances for us. So I would recommend people, if you have the flexibility in your shooting, I don't know if I want to say schedule, but just in like the way that you shoot, if you're not necessarily satisfied with the script, I think it is okay to kind of keep toying with it, as long as you're just like affecting maybe a little line here and there. I don't recommend sending complete rewrites of scenes the day before you shoot them. But, you know, if you, you know, for us, I think a lot of times it comes down to like a line or two that we haven't really gotten. Like, what is that line?
Another screw to turn somewhere.
Exactly. Like, I don't really like this. What is, you know, it doesn't sound natural, or it doesn't really like wrap up the idea. For us, a lot of the times it's trying to have these moments in the script that really, where we very clearly get the point across in the film, like make the message.
And then once you get into production, how do you guys divvy up duties?
So I direct, and we all kind of produce. But when we're on set, I direct. Domenico is cinematographer, and Mike is the first AD, gaffer, craft services.
Now we know our craft services aren't very good.
You basically, we always make this joke, and it's been a while since I've told it, so I used to be able to list off his job duties, just in just list off like 7 or 8 things that
There's
he does.
credits, Domenico, and then the rest of them's all him.
I mean, when we shot our first film prize short, The Man from Mars, that we just had a crew of 3. It was on that, Mike was our sound guy. Since then, we've actually gotten more used to hiring sound people, but so it was me, Domenico was cinematographer, and Mike was the sound guy. But then he was also doing, you know, a list of other things, you know, slate, first AD. You know,
so the production responsibilities, with the exception of Domenico's job, have kind of grown organically, it sounds like, over time, the more you guys have worked together.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing is, more recently in the last few projects, we've created a larger team of people that we enjoy working with. Most of our things have been done over in Louisiana for that project, and even now, as we prepare to potentially shoot a feature, even that, we don't need to shoot that there, but we just want to. You want to go back and kind of give back to the spot that's giving you a little bit of time. Exactly. We love it there.
So I know you're short on time, and I don't know if you have time to lay out the story, but you promised a story earlier.
Yeah,
so
what were we talking about? My brain is
now
so
wait a second. You offered, remind me later to tell a story.
Absolutely. And we were talking about something, and now I'm just trying to remember real quick what we were talking about. Oh, yes. So one thing that I've joked about with some of my friends who are also creative types, and a lot of them, if they're not actors now, they were at one point actors. And we've all of us have done the thing where we have things we've done in the past that we're maybe not super proud of. Just that work that you're like, I kind of hope this never sees the light of day. You know, I like, if you even have it like exists in a closet or somewhere.
I have
just
one of
buried
those.
away. Yeah, I have many.
Yeah, I have one. One that comes to mind. Yeah.
So we came up with this thing that we hope to do one day. It's sort of like our variation of the Razzies, where we will compile the best of our worst, so to speak, and have a night where we would, rent a screening room and basically do awards where we would show some of the worst clips from the absolute most terrible things we've ever done. And the things that we
That's a
in the
great
past
idea.
were embarrassed about, but now you can kind of look back and laugh on it.
Yeah.
You would have an award for worst performance, worst overall short, worst directing. I mean, some things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to take credit for, but I definitely have some things.
Worst
that I've
lighting,
directed
worst
that
sound.
Exactly.
Give the technical awards.
Absolutely. I mean, even like worst moments. Like all these different things, and then put those together, and then everybody there would ideally have something up there, so we're all kind of laughing at each other.
It would then kind of feel like a self roast, but
Absolutely.
in film.
That's basically what it is. We're all roasting each other, and then we're all voting, and in an ideal scenario, have some money for some. Everybody puts a little money in for some goofy prizes.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a great idea.
Have award. Everybody's voting for like the worst of things, and you want to win these stupid prizes.
Yeah. I think that's a really cool thing to do because I know that having programmed festivals before, what I always said, and Laura and I've talked about this a couple of times, like how funny would it be to do these are the absolute worst submissions that we got. But you can't do that.
No, you can't, unfortunately.
Because most of the people that are giving those submissions have no idea that they're the worst submissions that you're getting.
Absolutely.
And so it's a very negative, mean thing to do.
It is.
But it's like, how do you spin that into a positive thing? And that's how you spin it into a positive thing.
That's how it would be, and we've talked about it. We've even considered doing it years in the past. We're like, haven't quite come far enough away from this stuff yet. I remember we started watching some things, Mike and I, on the computer of some of our past things. And I definitely feel like my worst stuff was a lot worse than his worst stuff. Even his, I'm looking at it thinking, but you're still great at this.
Isn't that how we are, though, as artists, just in general? Like but it's the same thing with like your problems. Like your problems are kind of probably bad, but they're not nearly as bad as my problems because they're my problems.
Maybe. I don't know. My stuff was pretty rough. I played a bully in this one film, and let me just say, it might be one of the worst things that you've seen. I'm not going to say the name of it. I don't want anybody trying to find it, but
it's that bad.
Yeah. It's pretty rough, but it's definitely like I think I'm gonna sweep the awards, and like just with some of the stuff I've done, I feel like I think I got it.
You got it.
At least like the big.
Now we know why you want to have the awards.
I want to do it. I just want a night where I can just win a bunch of things for stuff that I used to be ashamed of.
So, where can people find you online? Like if they want to follow your career, because you've got some big things coming up. And
I'll be honest. One of the things I need to get better at is social media postings. I'm kind of bad about that, but I think I'm gonna need to get in the game because that's sort of the nature of the beast these days. But you can find me on Instagram. If you put in Johnnie Stapleton, I will probably pop up, but the actual name is Lil J Stapes. That's LIL space J space Stapes. Actually, I need to look. There might not even be spaces. I'm terrible.
I think there's a space between little and Stapes, but I don't think there's a.
That's a great. Let me look this up real quick.
But what I would say is that with a name like that on Instagram, it gives away the whole boy band thing. Like everyone knows that you've got an addiction there, an itch that you have to scratch.
I'm looking. It's true. I think that's where I don't even know what I was thinking when I came up with that, but it must have been like
it was a subconscious
an homage to my former self.
Yeah.
But there are some underscores in there, so it's LIL_J_Stapes, and hopefully you'll see.
Yeah, and I'll put
more
it in
stuff
the
on
show
there
notes so that everybody can find it.
Yeah. But yeah, for that's it for. And if you liked what you heard about Best of 7, you can go on iTunes and look that up. Check it out.
I'll put a link to that also in the show notes.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming in and spending an hour with me.
My absolute pleasure.
It was awesome to catch up with you again. And
I'll be here every week.
All right. We'll do it again soon. Take care.
Thanks, man.
So that was this week's episode of Creatively with Johnnie Stapleton, filmmaker, actor, writer, dancer, and dear friend. If you find yourself, as I do, struggling with self-acceptance around your work, remember that you are not alone. The most difficult thing for an artist to do is to know when to put down the brush. You can find links to this and all notes that we discussed in this week's episode in the show notes. Join us again next week for a deep dive into another art form with artists of all walks of life, where we get a chance to peek behind the curtain and attempt to tease out the secrets behind the creative process on Creatively.